Hey, real quick video. Primarily just wanted to update you guys that I did pop all those weird tokens out of that acrylic card back thing. There's just some weird plastic adhesive thing on the back, and that's why it was crackling, but they popped right out, and yeah, kind of interesting. Still don't know what in the heck 2x, 1x, 3x charge is supposed to mean, but anyway. Well, as the title implies, guys, we're here to talk about something pretty important. I was in the grocery store recently, and weirdly enough, I was in the grocery store with my mom, and I had just been thinking about this for the past week. I may be tapped into the matrix. The hologram may be fading around the edges a little bit. There may be some synchronicity going on, but I had been wondering for a little while, whatever happened to lifesavers? I haven't seen regular, old school, foil wrapper, hard lifesavers in forever. And just happened to see these in the checkout at the old school grocery store. So I picked some up. And yeah, the entire thing we're going to do today is just do a little lifesaver unboxing, if you will, and unwrapping. Anybody got odds on what the first color out of the side is going to be? Probably some folks there thinking cherry. I can tell what it is. So, as you can see, you got a watermelon going on there. Nice waxed paper that I can't feel because I have gloves on. I've never tried to open lifesavers with gloves, but this is a chore and a half. And of course, I'm going to stick this thing in my mouth. You guys are going to have to listen to it clacking around in there like a pair of dentures. Oh, wow. It's bringing me back. Those are smaller than I remember, though. Isn't that the way with everything these days? I swear to God, that's thinner and smaller, though. Sure. Anyway, just kidding. We're not going to talk about lifesavers all night. We're going to show you guys some singles that I picked up while I was at the shop, picking up my TMNT collector booster from last week. A couple of singles that I wanted that were reasonably priced. We got Yuffie Kisaragi, Yuriko, the Tiger Shadow, Edie Kramer, Teferi, Mage of Zephyr, and Luca Stadium, which we pulled a couple times on the channel, but it's Strixhaven time, and that is the Luca with a C that I didn't have. Filling in some gaps in the Final Fantasy collection. So what are we really here to talk about today? What we're really here to talk about is Universes Beyond. And I'm not going to go crazy, and I'm not going to go nuts, talking about how much I like it, and everyone who doesn't like it is delusional, and it's here to stay, and it's the only thing that's making Wizards a ton of money, Strixhaven currently notwithstanding. But all that stuff's a given. All that stuff we've talked about ad nauseum. We don't need to go over it again. What we're actually going to do today is I'm going to throw out some predictions, some thoughts about what I think the next few Universes Beyond sets could be. Because we know we're going to get at least 3, if not 4 of them next year in 2027. Pretty fair bet that one of them is going to be a Marvel set of some kind. And before we get into, I'm going to say the top 5 that I think are probably coming down the pike. I'm going to talk a little bit about some honorable mentions, I guess, things that I don't realistically think are going to happen, but things that I personally would love. And there's just a couple of them. They're both Universes Beyond sets that I think would be more in line with like a Doctor Who or a Fallout or a Warhammer commander deck or collector booster only situation. Premium product, because it would be a very small run. And as we've learned from Turtles and Spider-Man, and I don't know, I guess we'll see with The Hobbit, small run stuff in Universes Beyond, I don't know. I don't know if they're half-assing it because they don't need to try because they know it's going to sell and they already paid the licensing fee. So it's like, why go the distance? But I don't know. These are things that I would like to see on a whim, in a magical world where I got to pick what they were going to do. These are some things I would like to see. Number 1 on that list has got to be Bucky O'Hare. And I know 99% of people watching this are like, what the fuck are you talking about? I have very fond memories of watching the Bucky O'Hare cartoon as a kid, and literally every person I've talked to about it since has had that exact reaction. What the fuck are you talking about? A green space rabbit and a four-armed duck and Willie DeWitt and Berserker baboons and Blinky, the Blinky action figure out in the back. I used to have the Toad board too. I should have brought him in for this. It's a small set. There's a lot of different characters. There's some spaceships. I'm not sure what else you could do. You know, Toad Air Marshal, Jenny, like, I don't know, Dog Star. Overlooked and underappreciated property, in my opinion. The other one, and I was thinking about this mainly because I've been playing the game recently, but as of recording this video, but Resident Evil Requiem had me thinking, man, they really could pretty easily transfer Resident Evil into a Magic card game. I'm not quite sure how the mana fixing would work out, but you already have zombies, and there's a hell of a lot of equipment that you use in those games that would be artifacts and aren't red or green or even yellow herbs, kind of like elixir or, you know, the cure magic stuff that they did, the restorative magic that they did in Final Fantasy. I mean, couldn't you do some crazy stuff with the bosses? Wouldn't it lend itself really well to like blue black Demir or Golgari, you know, black green? I don't know. Couldn't you see Chris Redfield punching a boulder as a red white card? I certainly could. I mean, there's tons of characters, tons of creatures, tons of lore to pull from. 30 years of that game now. So I doubt it'll ever happen, but I feel like they kind of missed a boat with Universes Beyond not being around at the height of popularity of all the zombie stuff like Walking Dead. And I don't know that they could ever really pull off like a Tom Clancy or Call of Duty, like more of a conventional war setting. And I feel like Resident Evil is kind of a weird mixture of like the Innistrad vibes with a little bit of the science fiction flavor we've been getting from Edge of Eternities. It seems like one of those things that maybe it could work. But as far as stuff that I think is actually coming, these are my predictions. And number 5, at the bottom of the list, kind of in order of what I think is least likely to most likely, but all of these are in the category of very possible. Number 5 is Power Rangers. And I know Power Rangers is like, nobody's really into Power Rangers. This reignition thing doesn't seem to be selling a whole lot of merchandise, at least not in the stores where I see it. The thing with Power Rangers to me is Power Rangers is owned by Hasbro, which owns Wizards, which you know, does Magic. Power Rangers seems to be, and I don't know whether or not it's a chicken or the egg scenario here, it seems to be an underperforming property they don't do a lot with. And once again, similar to my Resident Evil idea, you know, you've got 30 plus years, well, more than 30 if you're counting all the Super Sentai stuff it was based on. But if we're just sticking strictly with the Power Rangers that everybody in America knows, you've got more than 30 years worth of creatures, characters, morphers, and Zords, and all this stuff. I mean, you could do many, many things with it. And you could also make it a very small, limited thing, like what they did with Warhammer, Fallout, Doctor Who, that kind of stuff. But I don't think they've done a Power Rangers card game. I know they did trading cards back in the day, because I also still have some of those in a box somewhere from when I was a kid. But it feels like something that could work, you know? They're doing ninjas already. They've done some sci-fi stuff. They've done some kaiju stuff in Ikoria. Power Rangers was kind of where the meeting point of all that stuff happened. I mean, to me, it was cool because it was basically like Transformers and kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had a baby that was also kind of a Godzilla thing and also kind of like a Saved by the Bell thing. So they've done weirder things. You know, if you can make a set out of something like Spider-Man where your characters are guy in a chair and hot dog cart is an artifact, Power Rangers doesn't seem that crazy to me. It's also one of those things where they could just continue to allow it to languish. But I do think as far as Hasbro stuff that they haven't mined yet, you know, they've already done Transformers. I don't really see them returning to that, although I'd be a fan of it. And G.I. Joe, it's kind of like the whole, I don't know if they would ever go with like a Call of Duty or a Splinter Cell or a Rainbow Six, you know, like I just can't envision that. But that doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen. Another thing that I guess I should put on the honorable mention list instead of on the main list, Cars, the movie, the Disney Pixar movie, is still really popular. What, 20, almost 20 years later? The Hot Wheels has always been a popular thing, but I don't think Aether Drift did well enough for them to ever consider going back to something like that and using the exhaust mechanic, for instance. That said, one thing that would fit in really well, I think, is number 4, and that would be Warcraft, or less specifically, Blizzard in general. If you think about it, Warcraft kind of dovetails perfectly in with the Baldur's Gate, Dungeons and Dragons stuff that they've done. StarCraft kind of fits in with Edge of Eternities and the Star Trek stuff that's coming up. And Diablo certainly fits in with Innistrad, both new and old. Avacyn Restored. I mean, all that stuff is kind of already in the fantasy, high fantasy wheelhouse that Magic plays really well with when it comes to Universes Beyond. I mean, you don't nearly see the same reaction to something like Final Fantasy or Lord of the Rings as you do to Ninja Turtles and Spider-Man, for instance. So that's one where, again, it seems kind of weird, but to me, that one makes perfect sense. And I could really see Warcraft being a thing in Magic. Number 3, and this one really isn't a stretch of the imagination at all, and I'm sure it will happen. I just don't see it happening for at least 2 or 3 years. So probably not 2027, but certainly I would think by 2029, we're going to see DC. I mean, look, it seems like a given, like I said. They've got this thing with Marvel going on right now. They're committed to these Infinity Stone, cards. So we know we're going to get more than just Spider-Man and the Marvel set that's due to come out here in a couple months. I think at some point when that's all said and done, what's the next, biggest crossover comic book thing? It's got to be DC. Out of all the things that you could pick, it's probably going to be DC. And honestly, if this was back in the days of blocks and sets, they could really chop DC up and think about how much money a Batman block of Magic the Gathering would make. That's basically printing money immediately. And, some of the larger, more well-known properties like Superman and things like that could also probably do very well. But let's be realistic. Batman is probably where that's going to go. And the only reason I say DC and not Batman is I think, especially with this Marvel set that's about to come out, there doesn't really seem to be a clear plan for what to do with these things. And I say that knowing that they lock these licensing agreements in years in advance. They've already got 2027 planned. They've probably already got half of it done or mostly in the hopper. They're probably working on 2028 or even 2029 at this point. So there's a plan as far as production, but it just seems like they kind of throw stuff at the wall sometimes. Why you would do something so specific like, I don't know, a Spider-Man set, and then do something that's Marvel, like this huge, massive net, as opposed to this one specific thing, it doesn't make a whole lot of marketing sense to me. And I know I said before, like, why don't you do if this was back in the 3 blocks to a set day, you do like Spider-Man, TMNT, X-Men, if you're insisting on this New York plane. I know TMNT is not part of Marvel, but you kind of see what I'm saying. Like, it's all set in the same plane that kind of fits the old style of doing things. I don't know that they really care about that. And if they want to maximize profit, why drag things out? Why make one Batman set that's going to make a ton of money and then spend any time bothering with just another DC only set that's basically going to have like a serialized Superman card and kind of nothing else that people would be interested in? I don't know, just a thought, but I don't think that DC is a huge stretch of the imagination. And again, we know it would make money. Something that I think would make even more money, though, is my number 2 pick, and that's Nintendo. The world is riding high on these Mario movies. Nintendo, as an overall brand, seems to just have a lot of pull, especially with this, older millennial market that Universes Beyond is mostly catering to. Smash Brothers will always be a big deal, And it's not like we're ever going to see a Pokemon crossover. So I think that some sort of a Nintendo thing that's like bringing in the big names again, Mario, I don't know how it fits in there, but they made Spider-Man work, so I'm sure they can make Mario work. Legend of Zelda fits a little closer. Metroid fits a little closer. Castlevania certainly fits already within Estrad. So a lot of that stuff, I think they could just slide it right into a Universes Beyond set. And again, kind of the same thing with DC. There's multiple ways you could split that up and make it kind of interesting, smaller sets within a set, or even just do the whole 4 commander decks, collector boosters, call it a day thing. But licensing Nintendo, I mean, Nintendo's doing big business right now. They have been for a long time. They're one of the most well-known pop culture things around, and I think they've figured out that when you align Magic with a video game, a name that's got notoriety in the video game world, you're going to get a lot of crossover. You've got a lot of built-in audience crossover there. And so, I don't know, Nintendo makes perfect sense to me. Whereas something like Pokemon really doesn't, because, Pokemon obviously is its own thing. It's probably, if not is, the biggest selling intellectual property in the world. Magic might need a little injection of Pokemon. Pokemon does not need Magic to make money, and probably doesn't want to bother with that anyway, watering down what they have going on. Now, number one, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. And to me, it was the first thing I thought of, and it seemed obvious, so obvious that I spent a lot of time thinking about it to try and kind of figure out, like, am I crazy? And I mentioned a lot of things so far that could kind of point in different directions. Like I said, Universes Beyond, even though it's intended to get people who aren't already playing Magic, it really seems, with the properties they've chosen, they're very obviously courting the market that has kind of ruled the roost for the last several years. And that's, older millennials, people who grew up on things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Spider-Man. Star Trek is an interesting choice. It's, I like it, so I'm interested in it. I don't know that many people my age are interested in it. That seems like more of an older millennial, maybe even Gen Xer thing. But they aren't really doing a whole lot to grab younger audiences right now. Maybe when they plow through all the stuff that they think is a surefire sale to people my age, then I could see them going for some sort of an anime property. But again, what anime property could really go the distance on selling cards that doesn't already have a good backing? One Piece, Gundam, all the stuff that's in, Weiss Schwartz, like, all that stuff is already doing well. There's already a collector market there. There's already people playing with those cards or collecting those cards. I don't know that that's where they're going to go. I think they're going to go for the lowest hanging, most obvious shotgun, make all the money we can at once. And that, to me, is one very simple thing: Star Wars. I know I just got done listing all these other properties that have cards and didn't mention Disney, but I don't think that necessarily works quite as well. Whereas Star Wars, I think, is kind of ripe to be in there. I mean, Final Fantasy had its own card game too, and it still has its own card game and still has people that are very dedicated, very serious about playing that game. But it did a crazy amount of product and business in Magic. And I think Star Wars wouldn't be any different, even with Unlimited out. There was a Star Wars CCG back when Magic was around. And the Star Wars CCG, while there's still a very dedicated cult following, it is not a thing anymore. Unlimited, I think it's really cool. I would like to learn how to play it. I don't know how much longer it's going to be around, as we're seeing Shatterpoint drop off. Legion, I don't know anything about it, but I mean, if Shatterpoint's dropping off, tabletop games seem like a very hard thing to maintain if it's not something massively, massively popular like Warhammer, or been around for 40 plus years like Battletech. So to me, Star Wars is the obvious choice because every single person on the planet knows Star Wars. We just celebrated May the 4th, for crying out loud, and next year is the 50th anniversary. And if you don't think that Star Wars isn't going to go absolutely nuts with a Disney marketing budget behind it, I need to take you back in time to when the trilogy was re-released in the special editions prior to that happening on the 20th anniversary of A New Hope, which would have been 1997, 95, 96. They were gassing up the tanks, filling stores with Power of the Force action figures and micro machines. And I still have a lot of them because they were awesome. But 1999, when episode 1 came out, it wasn't just that episode 1 took over the toy aisle. Episode 1 took over everything. It was at fast food restaurants. It was on vending machines. It was on candy. It was on comic books. It was on actual books. The Phantom Menace was fucking everywhere. And granted, it was the return. It was a new Star Wars movie, which, you know, unless you were really deep on the insider knowledge, most people didn't know that thing was coming until Meet Joe Black trailer, right? I mean, there were rumblings, I'm sure, and reports on Entertainment Weekly or Entertainment Tonight or whatever, but when that thing came out, it was a marketing blitz, the likes of which I don't know. I don't know if even Marvel, with all the stuff they've done over the years, could compare to it. How overpowering, oversaturated, in your face, all over the place it was. I would be very surprised if after, you know, all this radio silence since the last mainline Star Wars entry in 2019, and we're in 2026 before we've got a full-on Star Wars movie coming out that most people are kind of dumping all over, and it hasn't even come out yet. Without, you know, and I know Starfighter is due to come out, but without a episode 10 or some crazy big budget, you know, insane thing, like if they finally did a movie of Shadows of the Empire, my dream come true, or Rogue Squadron, which probably not as many people would enjoy. But my point is, without, in the absence, in the vacuum of a huge movie, what does Star Wars have? Well, Star Wars always has the thing that it made all of its money on in the first place, which was merchandise. And since we know kids don't buy toys anymore, what are they going to do? Are they going to spend tens or hundreds of millions of dollars developing a new AAA game that no one's going to buy again? Well, I guess they already did do that. Galactic Racer is coming out soon, and it looks awesome. And I hope that when this video comes out and then that game comes out, this take doesn't age like soured milk, but it may. It's a chance that we take. But my point is this: 50 years in, they are going to do anything they can. They being Disney, they being Hasbro, they being Wizards. They're going to do anything they can to make those things make money. They've got to. Magic is like its own miniature economy within Hasbro. And Star Wars is gonna, I think, is the only thing that is gonna pick up the slack on Marvel if, you know, the old Doomsday stuff doesn't work out, which, much like Grogu and The Mandalorian, people seem to be dumping all over, and we're months away from seeing that movie. So, yeah, my pick for number one, and I think it is going to happen, and I think it'll happen next year. I think we'll find out at the end of the year that it's coming in 2027. It's going to be Magic Star Wars, because, look, the only thing that would make more money in my mind than a Batman Magic set is a borderless Darth Vader Planeswalker. You know what I mean? The amount of stuff that you could turn into cards is endless. And look, this stuff is really growing on me. Unlimited is really growing on me. But compare this to that. Compare this to this. Everybody knows this. You've got to be pretty specifically a Star Wars Unlimited nerd to be playing this. And that's not, that's not a slam on Unlimited. It's just that's what I'm seeing. You can go to any Target around me and pick up a package of Star Wars Unlimited anytime you want. If there's a package of Magic on the shelves of any kind, I'd be incredibly surprised. And that's the way it's been for a while now. So in closing, I think that's the ranking, man. I think, again, 5th through 1st, it just, that's what makes sense to me. But I'd be curious if anybody watches this, what your thoughts are and what you guys think is more likely, what you would like to see, even if there's not a chance in hell you'll ever see it outside of printing your own proxies, which I'm going to go do right now with a Deadeye Duck Commander deck. Anyway, folks, always keep your lifesavers handy. And until next time, peace.